Well, hey, friends, welcome to the Everyday Mulemanship Podcast. I'm Ty Evans. Thank you so much for listening today. For this episode, I got a awesome guest named Trent Peterson. This guy has one of the coolest Instagram pages I have ever come across. The Wild in Us. He's got a website, thewildinus.com. This guy's a packer, builds saddles. He's been all over. Really excited to talk to him today. So we're going to jump in and have some fun with Trent. Appreciate him coming on. Before we get started, I want to give a huge thanks to our sponsors that make this episode free for you to listen to. We got Roman Home Tents, my buddy Ben Lewis building some awesome wall tents / teepees over there. My favorite is the Drifter. That's the one I use the most. Also, Colt Saddlery, if you're looking for a good custom built saddle to fit your mule, Colt, he'll take care of you. Also, Mules More Magazine, as well as Western Mule Magazine. We also have Diamond W Enterprises and Boyd Ranch Mule Days. Huge thanks to all those sponsors. If you guys ever run into them, please tell them thank you for supporting the podcast. Tell them you're glad that they helped me out. We love bringing these episodes to you guys, and we couldn't do it without them. So very grateful to each and every one of them. If you guys would be so kind as to leave us a review at the end of the show, I'd be very grateful. On Apple, you can leave 5 stars and review, and now you can leave a review on Spotify as well as leave comments on there for each episode. So please do that. And with that, let's get to Trent Peterson. Here we go. All right, man. Thanks for doing this for me. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity.
I was I've had a few people tell me to invite you on the show. Um, and I followed you for a long time on your cool Instagram page. You are an artist. You have some. I was just scrolling through it a minute ago, and man, there's like a whole class on saddle building on your Instagram.
Yeah, that is actually my goal. My intentions there is to if someone's got the drive and the want, the information's there and they can decipher it, and be able to actually translate into that craft or into their journey into that craft. But it's not I'm not going to give it to you all just on a plate, but I want you to be able to show up at my doorstep and go, "Oh, I have a pretty good idea." You
Yeah,
know.
man, it's way cool, and just your artistic flair is amazing. You built I saw one a while ago. You built, I think it was a pair of spur straps, and it looked like you're building a like there's a mule and a pack string and kind of flown into a mountain scene.
Yeah.
I gotta give me some of those.
Yeah, I'll have to get you some.
Heck yeah.
That one's yeah, that's kind of become a signature piece, if you will, for that. I get a lot of demands for that. And it's a really fun one. I just love how that flows through that whole spur strap. And it's like, tell me you're a packer without telling me you're a packer.
That's right. Well, and you are a packer for sure. For my listeners, introduce yourself and talk about what you do and everything, so these guys can get an idea of what we're getting into here, man.
Yeah. I was born and raised in Washington. Horses and mules were not my background. Motorcycles were. That's what the family we grew up in. But I went full time packing. Well, I first started packing in 2005, and then I went full time in 2015. And before then, it was just kind of like weekend warrior stuff. Very quickly, in that previous weekend warrior stuff, I quickly realized like I I don't like any of these Western saddles. So I tried an Australian saddle, which was pretty cool. It had its limits. And I tried a McClellan saddle, which was pretty cool, but had some limits. Like I had all these things, and then I looked at my paycheck. There's no way I'm going to be able to afford it. Uh, and then I had this idea of riding from Mexico to Canada on my 3 untouched wild Mustang. And for that, I was going to need a lightweight saddle that was going to hold up to the trail and the demands of the trail. And again, I couldn't afford it. I went to a saddle maker and I said, "Here's this idea I have in my head, and it's made up of a bunch of different saddles. Could you make it?" And he says, "Yeah, it's going to cost you about 4 grand." I said, "I couldn't afford that, but I could afford the materials and the tree." Um, and then I had a friend of mine who had there's an old saddle making school. So there was multiple benches in that building, all set up with the tools, and let me show up for 4 days. And I just locked myself in that room and came out with my first saddle. So I went from making a journal cover and hand stitching in a knife sheath directly into making a saddle. There was nothing in between.
That's a bit of a jump. But
Yeah,
hey, you know what? When you got to do it, I mean, there's something to say about those times of necessity. Like, hey, I need a saddle,
yeah.
and I don't got any money, so I'm gonna build one.
Right. Anyway, I think it's that to me is like that can't get any more Western. That can't even get any more American cowboy or American packer than anything else. I mean, that's what our entire culture is basically based around us. I have this need for this horse and or to do this job, but I can't go to town and pick it up. Uh,
Mhm.
so I got to figure out how to make it. And and it's that curiosity that should be your guide into, well, just because I don't know how to make it or I've never made it, it doesn't mean I can't figure out how to do it. I just have got to slow things down and or change the perspective on my problem that I'm looking at. And then once I can see the greater picture and have an understanding of it, now I can start to zoom back in. Uh, yeah. So yeah, I think that's just my path, and I think more people should get back to that. I hope they do.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things. So I teach people how to train horses and mules and do clinics and stuff, and that's one of the lessons that I try to share with my students because a lot of people are scared to like work with their mule or their horse.
Hmm.
And the most common excuse I hear is, "Well, I didn't want to screw it up." And I
Hmm.
tell them, "Well, well, what have you got done by doing nothing, though?" You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And the answer is always nothing. So,
Nothing.
like, at least go try something. Like, let that curiosity flow. And I mean, and then I tell most people, like, okay, in reality, what is the worst thing that's going to happen here? Really? Like, how bad are you going to mess this thing up?
Yeah.
I don't think these people are going to go, smack their meals upside their heads. So I'm like, how bad are you really going to screw it up trying to teach it how to turn?
Yeah. Right.
Just go do it. Just start
Yeah.
it. So, but you obviously have I mean, like I said, you are an artist, man. Your stuff is so cool. I can just watch you stamp and do that. Like I could just sit there. In fact, I've probably wasted a lot of time, Trent, watching your videos when I should be doing something different. But you must have had that mindset to be able to do that. And I think that's what sets your work apart from so many too. Um, is yeah, you just get after it. And but there's got to be something in there. Did you like to draw as a kid? Did you like to do art or like what'd you do?
Yeah. I was, as far as quote unquote traditional academia, mathematics, spelling, history, all, literature, I was D's get degrees, man. Like I was barely making it through. Um, but science and the arts, that clicked for me. And
Yeah.
then I dabbled my entire life in some sort of craft. Um, I've just always, I'm extremely ADHD, and I was diagnosed uh, like fourth grade, I think, put
Mhm.
on medication, and if there's ever a point in my life that I just wanted to hit the easy button and be over and be done with all this, it was in that period of my life. Um, and I couldn't stand it because it's the way it made me feel out of place. Never felt like I was heard, and it made me feel that my thoughts they were wrong. So I stopped taking it, and then it started that process of how do I, if I'm not gonna have a chemical, take on a chemical to regulate my brain. I've got to get to a point where my brain can regulate itself. And that was a bumpy road. I mean, there was a lot of time spent in the principal's office, and mom was there. But we made it through, and it was the arts, it was crafts, that was the thing that silenced my brain. And I had a high school ceramics teacher who, interestingly enough, my freshman year in high school, kicked me out of his class, and he just deemed me as unteachable because I pretty much was. It's like if there was any clay on the ceiling, it was because I chucked it up there because I was bored. um, but then by the time I got to my junior year, he approached me, and I think he just had witnessed me or conversed with enough teachers. I mean, I was in special ed, and he just came to me and says, "Hey, I want you to take you have room for a free class, advanced learn skills." I said, "Yeah, do it for ceramics. Take advanced ceramics." Okay, cool. So I show up, and he has set aside this whole studio room for me with a potter's wheel and a stone to knead the clay on. I mean, an opportunity that I recognize is pretty rare, but without that opportunity, I don't think I would be where I am today. And it was a space that I could go into and create something that wasn't there before, turn the music on and turn my brain off. And all of a sudden the reel I just posted this morning, it's like that chatter. That's literally what happens in my brain is when I sit down at the tooling bench, the whole world just disappears. When I even just grabbing the handle on the door to my shop, the whole world just disappears. Getting in on mule, getting on my horse, leading a string, the whole world disappears. So I found those things that allowed my brain to quiet and slow down. And so yeah, through the arts, and I think mule training and horse training and packing. I mean, packing to me is the ultimate form of art. Saddle making is wonderful art, but it's the vehicle to packing for me. Like, I really enjoy creating saddles and my art there, and that's where I make my money. But really, the only reason why I'm doing that is so I can go do that thing over there and be in the
Oh yeah.
mountains.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
your winter time right now, you're probably busting out goods and things so that come June, July, August, September, you're adios, huh?
Yeah. I go into the shop after I harvest the deer, in the fall, and they kind of don't come out until spring. And I like that. I like that routine because you go hard in the summer and your body just takes a toll, but
Hmm.
then you're allowed to reset, and it really puts me into a rhythm that I feel is more natural to our earth and how our bodies are meant to interact, which is more towards the sun, actually waking up. In the summertime, I sleep on the porch, and so I wake up at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning whenever the birds start chirping, and then wintertime, I might wake up a little bit later. But uh, yeah, I enjoy spending all that time in the shop in the wintertime, just catching up, kind of getting rid of some anxiety that I built up over the summer from taking off in the mountains and getting behind on things.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, right now I generally have at any given time 3 saddles in some sort of stage of production, and I'm pretty grateful to have a space that's big enough for that too.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like what I do because all my career's in seasons really. We go
Mhm.
hard doing clinics. Spring and fall are our main seasons. Summer, I get to be home a little bit more and spend some time, in the mountains. I don't get to pack near as much as you do, man. I mean, like if I get 5 good pack trips in a summer, that was a really good year. But I just don't get to do that. But and then the wintertime like this, I'm home and I get to batch these podcasts up and work on my online class and all kinds of other stuff. So yeah, I feel you. It's good to kind of shake things up over the year, have different seasons and things like
Yeah,
that. So
yeah. Stay away from the. I like a mule. I'm routine based. I like my routine, but when your routine becomes so repetitive, then uh, now you're into that like 9 to 5 complaining about a job type thing, and
yeah.
I can't
Well,
handle that.
you compare it to the mule, man, but the difference between us and the mule is that giant frontal lobe. That's what we have that, so we need other outlets to use that thing. Where the mule, they have one, but it's just really small, right? So
Yeah.
theirs is it's dedicated to motor movement. So, the mule loves routine. They love it.
Hmm.
I mean,
Hmm.
they hate when things change.
Yeah.
Um, and that's just good for them. But yeah, for us, yeah, routine is good, but yeah, we need a little bit more than that. And you've obviously found a cool outlet for this stuff and building things and when you was just talking about going to school and having trouble in some of those classes and you know um I'm just reflecting. I've met a lot of really great horsemen and a lot of really great mulemen. That's
Hmm.
I guess that's one of the blessings of my career is I get to rub shoulders with a lot of these great people.
Hmm.
And some of the best have ADHD, man.
The hunter gene, that's what it's being called. I
Yeah,
don't know if you've
because
heard that one yet.
I haven't heard that. I haven't
Y-
heard that, but it's like I think it's because they got to be busy doing stuff. So people with ADHD tend to make the quietest mules because they're always busy,
Yeah, there's
changing it
been
up.
there's been quite a lot of sorry, the mountain's turning pink and just
Oh
too
yeah,
cool.
heck
Um,
yeah,
yeah, there's been some recent discoveries and studies on ADD and ADHD and what that person is like. And when I was a kid, it was no, you don't fit into the system and you got a problem. So we need to like give this to you to shut you down because I don't know how to handle you as the
yeah,
adult. Basically, mule, someone who's never trained. Like I don't know what the hell to do. So here's her gimmick. I'm gonna give you this pill. But when they start to look at this in their brains and the way that they think and they operate is that they we don't fit into the normal system because we were the ones who would have been out gathering and hunting um, and bringing in for the family. And why would we be that way? It's because our brains are so active. I'm processing 15 things at once. It's like oh man, there's a stand-up comedian. He's ADD, but he's also got shoot, what is it?
I think I know who you're talking about, but I don't know his name. Can't
He,
help you.
he's kind of he gets triggered. Um, so he
Yeah,
gets stimulates.
The Tourette's get him too. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And so
yeah, I know who you're talking about.
he's describing himself as his brain is like a Ferrari inside of a Ford Escort. You know,
Yeah,
and that's pretty true with us because, like you said, when I'm sitting, if I'm sitting on my mare, I'm doing 15 different things, and you have no idea I'm doing them, but I'm constantly just
Mhm.
adjusting, tweaking, communicating to her when we're standing there. It's like we have an opportunity to constantly be working with them and connecting with them and communicating with them, but we got to take that opportunity and we got to be able to see that and not get too lost in this actual conversation. We can do multiple things at the same time, and
Yeah.
I think that's where you're getting to, where people that are ADHD or ADD tend to create really quiet mules because yeah, we're just constantly
The other
fiddling with
thing I
something.
the other thing I see is I don't know how you describe it, but it's almost like they have a hyper focus because like you're saying, as soon as you sit down at your bench and you start working, everything the world just slows down, and that's because you're like hyper focused on
Yeah.
that job. And I can relate to that. Like when I'm working with my mules, same thing, man. I'm just there with my mules. Like I'm not thinking about the bills I gotta pay. I'm not thinking about what's for dinner. I'm just thinking right here, right now. And I get that with
Yeah.
mules. I get that with fly fishing. Um, Whereas other times, I mean, my brain's going 90 miles an hour. I mean,
Yeah.
good luck keeping up with me on this podcast because that's how it is. I'm just all over the place. I've had people complain on my podcast like, well, Ty, he sure changes subjects a lot. That's because I'm thinking about so much, and I've never been diagnosed anything like that. But I guess that nobody's ever really cared, um, but yeah, I can bounce around like that too. Except for you give
Hmm.
me a mule, and then it's just that hyper focus, and I think that is a really good trait that great horsemen that I've been around have, and great artists like you, great saddle makers. I mean, it seems like anybody that's really good at something, they can get focused in on it, and the world around them just kind of gets shut out during that time. I think it's a good
Hmm.
thing.
Hmm. Yeah.
It's interesting about
Mm.
the hunter thing. I've never thought about that, but that makes a lot of sense. And that would kind of fit in with what I was just saying with like being hyper focused. So, they're out there, they're hunting, they're doing their thing, but they're so engaged with, you know, the stock or whatever they're doing that they
Yeah.
can't, you know, nothing else distracts them because of how engaging it is. So
Yeah, yeah.
it's
Your
interesting.
brain is picking up on all sorts of sounds and sensories, and until you get into, like you say, that stock mode, and now you're super hyper focused on that, and nothing else really exists around you, and it's kind of a fun feeling to have that world go just a real tiny pinhole.
Yeah. It might piss off the people around you when you're not paying attention to them anymore. Sometimes in my clinics, like when I'm working with a student, and they're having some trouble or they need some help, sometimes it's easy for me to all of a sudden just, tunnel vision in on them and I'm just helping them. And I'm like, oh, wait, hold on. You got a whole class you got to help here.
Yeah, yeah.
Hold
Mhm.
on, hold on a second, Ty. You got to don't forget about everybody else. And
Mhm.
in the beginning, it was harder for me to manage that. Like when I first started doing clinics,
Mhm.
at this time, almost 13 years ago, started doing clinics. And in the beginning, it was like that where I'd just hyper focus in on one person. And next thing I know, I've spent an hour with them and everybody else is just standing around,
Yeah.
and I'm like, oops, sorry guys. Got distracted. I hope you learned something from that, but sorry.
Yeah. Is that the lion's share of what you do as
Yeah.
far as, yeah, you're lot of clinics, a lot of traveling.
Yeah, clinics. Yeah, yeah, pretty much a teacher. That's what I do is teach. So
Yeah.
that's what I like, and it's pretty fun. We get up in your country a little bit. Um,
Yeah.
so you're in let's see, you're in Eastern Washington, right?
Yeah, I'm here, little place in the Met Howe Valley,
Yeah,
dead
we get up.
end road.
Yeah, we get up there. We've been to Spokane around there a few times. We've been to let's see, going to Sela,
Oh yeah.
Washington. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yep. So we'll be going there this year, but yeah, that's what we do. So we get up there a little bit. I'm glad I'm not up there right now after you sent me that video yesterday of all that snow, man. You guys got some snow yesterday.
Yeah, yeah, we got more than 15 inches here at the
Jeez.
house. Friends further up the valley, they are reporting 22 inches, 24 inches, and that was basically in 12 hours. It was
That
nuts.
man, that's crazy. Is that pretty like standard? Are you guys getting a lot of snow in every winter? Is it pretty normal to get that much?
Last winter I got a lot of riding in last winter. This winter, not so much. It would be historically, yeah, true to say that we get buried. 2 winters ago, we really, really got buried. Yeah. But then again, last year was a pretty miss. This year's looking pretty good, but it really sets into that seasonality of things that I really enjoy. We're tucked up here in the mountains. There's a trailhead just 2 miles away from my house on the other side of the valley that you can get up. But come November, we're out of the mountains and staying lowland, and we just get to stare up at them and are completely locked away. I enjoy that. It's kind of like, nope, Mother Nature said this is mine. I'm gonna go let it rest for a minute. You can have it back in the spring.
Yeah.
And then when spring does hit, I mean, this whole valley is just blowing up green, and everyone's getting pretty excited about getting out there. But this next year, I don't know. We'll see what kind of trail, what kind of what we can actually do. I don't have a whole lot of faith in trails getting opened this year with no temporary employees coming on with the Forest Service, which is kind of a bummer. So,
Oh yeah. So what's going on with that? I haven't heard much about that kind of stuff.
there was oh shoot, I can't remember how many millions of dollars were unaccounted for, just missing somewhere. I think it was north of 700 million, maybe it was 70 million. No, seven was in there, and there was a zero. Might have been another one, but anyway, uh, they have no idea where it went, and so they
That would be
they
convenient, huh?
yeah, it's like, huh, that's a lot of money to go missing, and they deemed that the temporary employees, so your 1039s, so those are your people that are um, come on in April and they work for 1,039 hours, 6 months basically. Uh, that's your trail crews. That is your research scientists, forestry specialists, anybody boots on the ground. You're a temporary employee.
Mm.
You are what makes the wilderness happen, not the person sitting in an office influenced by AC. So if you're non-fire, uh, you are not getting hired next year. You don't have a job. If you're anything outside of not, fire, is there's no hire for it. What does that mean? It means for especially like our forest here, we have north of 2,500 miles of trails. Uh, we can barely get 700 to 1,400 of those miles open a year. Like on a really good year, we're getting north of 1,000 miles, but on average, about 700 to 800 miles. So we don't have loops anymore. There's really only one loop generally, and it's a really, really, really scary situation, actually. And I don't think a lot of people quite realize this is that when you go into the wilderness, and this is with packing, is that um, you got to be thinking 3 steps ahead. Same in saddle making. You got to be thinking 3 steps ahead because while I'm doing one thing, I could be waiting for another thing. So what I'm getting at is if I go into the mountains, I want to know I have a way to get out that's not the same way I came in case a fire erupted or whatever, and I need to exit. I need to know what my exit strategy is.
Mm.
Um, Plan for the worst and hope for the best. We don't have that option now. Now it's just one shot in and one shot out. Um, so we've got trails that will not be open, period. All of next summer does not look like I will get into the wilderness. I'll get to the wilderness boundary, but
Mhm.
beyond that, unless there's a volunteer group, which if you have the time, please go and volunteer with any kind of organization. I hate to say that because it shouldn't be up to us to volunteer to do that. But if we want this thing to still be here and a wilderness to go into, we're going to have to take action for it. So yeah, I don't know. It's just it's a really kind of scary future because it's an entire way of life that is going to be impacted by it,
Yeah.
and it scares me to think about how many years can that sustain, without people going back there and being in the wilderness. And part of what I do now is just taking people you know that have never been there before and show them and say, look at this, receive this medicine, and guess what, you can do this on your own. It's free. It's here for everybody. um and all you just have to do is put one foot in front of the other. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do that anymore, and that's really, really, really scary for me.
Yeah, it's tough. Here in Utah, we've actually pretty much, I mean, not all of Utah, man. I'm generalizing, but a lot of Utah, Yeah, we pretty much clear our own trails down here. So
Yeah.
luckily we have, like just right here above me, there's a lot, and it's mostly forest, and so we don't get into the capital W wilderness right here by where I live, but it's mostly
Hmm.
forest. But the forest doesn't, they're not cleaning it out. I mean,
Yeah.
they don't do anything. So luckily here we have a lot of the stock permits. So there's the sheep guys and the cattle guys. But if it wasn't for them, the trails wouldn't be getting cleared. They're the ones that do it so they can get their access up on the mountain.
Yeah.
But yeah, when it comes to actual like government, the stuff, people that are supposed to be the people that are supposed to be doing it, yeah, that's been long gone. And I think now they learn. I don't know. I think the local office, I think they know, like, well, why should we do it? The stock guys are going to do it. Why do we need to go spend the
Yeah.
hours? So I
Yeah.
think
That
it's
that's
kind of,
my fear, is that that's going to become the norm, is that, oh, we'll just let them do it and we don't have to do it.
yeah. Well, there you go. Utah's your case study. It's happened. Okay. Luckily, we got, a lot of backcountry horsemen too around here.
Hmm.
Backcountry horsemen, they do a ton. And then just local guys, I got a few friends on, that ride around here that's kind of what they're into. So they just, part of their weekend adventures is just, well, let's go ride as far as we can and clear trails as far as we can.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a work trip for them. But I guess that's their own therapy in their own way, hey, let's just go cut trail. I mean, that's just a lot of work for me. I kind of
Yeah.
want to just ride. I want to ride on the trail, and, I don't want to have to pull the saw out every 10 feet.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah. Cut your
yeah,
way
it's,
in, cut your way out.
it's interesting the changes in the landscape. So a place that I've ridden out here in Utah, I've ridden here in Utah for, I mean, my whole life since I was I mean, literally a baby. My dad was taking me out there,
Mm,
and it changes from just BLM. Utah is mostly BLM ground.
yeah.
And Utah is like over 70% public lands. Well, majority of that is BLM. So it's
Hmm.
BLM ground, but then they decide, well, let's make it they call it a wilderness study area. So
Mm,
they were considering changing it to wilderness,
hmm.
and then they did change it to wilderness. These little sections, which on that aspect, I was really glad because, okay, now it's going to cut out these particular areas, kind of cut out some of the, I don't know, the side by sides and that kind of
Yeah.
stuff, and this
Hmm.
the dirt bikes, turn it up so it would have a wilderness feel, and I was really glad about that. But then, you know, one restriction after another, you know,
Hmm.
it keeps coming, and
Yeah.
then they're like, well, we're not sure we want stock in there anymore either. And so all of a sudden it turned, it's turning quickly. We're like, oh geez, that's not fun. So anyways, luckily there's enough influence from stock users still that we're doing okay.
Yeah.
But I tell my friends, that are out there riding, make sure you guys are being kind to all these people, because when you pass those
Yeah.
hikers, some of those hikers don't want you here. They
Yeah.
don't want you around. So you need to, put be a good example for those, to those hikers and to those people that don't know about stock, because all they see is the crap they got to step around, and
Right.
the tracks, and then, you know, if you follow the rules, which I don't, they're supposed to yield to us. Well, I like to yield to the hikers, right? I like to get off the trail for them
Mm,
and just make a conversation. Also, that's because I want to pick where I get off the trail too.
yeah.
'Cause usually the hikers will hide, behind the worst tree possible or something, and so I like to get off the trail, let them by. But there's so many people that are riding that kind of think, well, I know I own this land and they got to yield to me. And anyways, there's a lot of things that, especially for packing and stock use, that they're kind of ticking away against us a little bit. It's a challenge.
Yeah. And you would think, you mentioned that there is um, not to give a reason, an excuse, or an example of why to dislike uh, a rider, a horse and a mule. Um, Most people have no idea, no concept that if it was not for the back of the mule, we would not have a single trail. Period. They just kind of think that those trails were magically there, or uh, some really intensely badass men and women were out there just for miles carving into the wilderness, carrying everything. Like, no, come on, man. This is the meal. This is
Yeah.
why it's here. So it's really important, like you say, to engage with your public in a way that is going to be cordial and kind of going out of your way to make them happy so that we can still have this thing. And especially in this day of social media, we've entered a world into a realm that we've never been in before. And we have accelerated at a speed that our brains actually can't even keep up. And we're able to put information, quote unquote information, out there, or material, at a rate that is just unbelievable. And so the stuff that we now put out in photos is more important, actually, than even our engagement with the public face to face, because that we can communicate, and there's that give and take of a facial expression. Whereas an image that we put up that just looks like, yeah, anybody can see that that mule does not look comfortable. That's more damaging, actually.
Yeah.
And we really need to be aware of that and educate ourselves on that. I mean, I've seen some things that have been put out where most of them I can pretty much every single one I just go, oh, good Lord, and walk away. But,
Yeah, there's
I
some people that are doing us a disservice. That's for sure.
total disservice, and with the companies too, you know, people are big companies are wanting to get on this and are employing photographers and uh, personalities to sell their product. There's more to it than just a good looking face. Like, you got to know what you're doing. Like, please be aware of that. That you can't just be putting out anything. You can't be putting a photo where you've got a a writing pad being used as a pack pad, squirting out the back end with the britchin hanging off to the one side and going up its butt. Like that, you look like a redneck leaving a yard sale. Like, that just looks horrible. And anybody that has any kind of um, sense of what it should be would say, well, that looks like torture to that animal.
Yeah.
There's a reason to hate us. Like, both people in those that made that decision to put that material out there, you know, their their ignorance is their excuse. And so, but it's the person that showed up with the horse. It's our responsibility to control that, manage it, and mitigate what images put out there, just like we would passing the trail. Like, no, I'm going to pick my spot here because it's safer for everybody.
Yeah.
The hiker does not know that, nor does the photographer. He may not know that. Hey, that pad shouldn't be sticking out, or we shouldn't be using this pad, or that bridging is wrong. So it's really important, I think, to be aware
Something
of that.
that something that I think is really important is both stockmanship and animal husbandry.
Hmm.
And I know a lot of great packers, like you. And I had a couple days ago, I had Chris Iyer, Chris Iyer, the mule dragger guy,
Hmm.
had him on. And, like, and I've had Chris Clark on and Jeff Pace and, these great packers and these people. And animal husbandry should be at the top of the list, and
Yeah.
and for these greats, it is. And so it's funny. So I do a lot of day work, okay, around here. So when I'm home and
Hmm.
whenever I'm not on the road doing clinics, I'm home and I get offered a chance to do some day work for different guys. And I remember, and this is a long time ago now, probably like 5 or 6 years ago now. I was helping some people out, and there's some really young guys there, and they caught their horses, and they're covered in mud, like just covered in mud. And these guys just throw their saddle pad on, throw the saddle on, saddle up. And I'm like, aren't you going to brush those down? And they said the dumbest thing, like, real cowboys don't use brushes. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, What are you talking about? You've been watching too many John Wayne movies? Like I don't like
Hmm.
or like what's going on here, you know? I'm like, actually, no. Your horse is going to get sore. Your horse is going to get sore by
Hmm.
the end of the day. You're going to burn a hole on their back, you know, or in their
Yeah.
cinch pocket or wherever. I think I guess that would be the redneck stigma thing. You know, I don't know the redneck part of it where, nah, I don't care, just saddle up and go. But
Yeah.
um, I had a I had a guest, Colby Gines on. Colby Gines, he does the Chrome in the Canyon mule cell. Are you familiar with
Oh
that?
yeah. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Great guy, good packer too, outfitter. You know, he's done it all. And um, I was he usually does his little sales meeting right by my trailer down there at Chrome in the
Hmm.
Canyon. So we do
Hmm.
clinics down there. He does the sale down there, and we were just sitting out front, and I overheard him talking to all these sales guys, you know, these mule sale guys, right? And he's like, "You guys need to make your mules look good, like clean them up, brush them off, you know, and
Yeah.
clean their feet, you know, like get them looking good because you guys are representing, you know." And um, anyways, it's just that animal husbandry part. That's a big part of being a
Yeah.
good packer, being a good stockman, being a good cowboy, being a good whatever you're into. That's part of it. We need to take care of our animals.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the expression, how you do one thing is how you do everything.
Yeah.
If you show up with your mule covered in mud, I mean, that to me tells me everything I need to know about you. From that point on, it's like, okay. I worked for an outfit, that they had. It was it was called the RC hand job. When you went to put up the pack saddle, you just wiped your hand down their back and then threw it up, and that was it. Off you went. Uh, but that animal husbandry, like you're saying, is something that really does need to come back into our daily life and a true understanding of what that is. Um, because I don't have kids. I've been married, um, not currently, and those things out there, those are my children. That's what my mom. She jokes about that. They're her grandkids. And
Yeah.
and that's how I see them as.
Hmm.
They are literally my kid. They depend on me.
Hmm.
And where you're going down the trail and a hiker says, "Wow, looks like you're doing it the easy way." It's not doing it the easy way. I'm just doing it a different way. But I'm also going in the mountains with 1,200-pound toddlers, and you know they require my attention all the time, and I don't ever get a break. When I'm out there, even at bed, I'm married to them. I'm married to the thought of them. I'm constantly thinking about them first before anything else.
I've got that a lot too. That oh yo yeah, that's the easy way. I'm like, well, I guess I'm not hiking like you are. So yeah, I didn't just walk those 20 miles that you're walking.
Yeah,
But how many hours ahead of time did I start packing up these things and taking care? I mean,
yeah,
I would argue the opposite. So, I mean, that there's some days that I look at those backpackers, I'm like, man, how would it be? Just-
yeah. And to convey to that world that they don't understand about our relationship to the mules and the horse and the mountains and why we want to be doing that. They think it's easy, but if we're able to tell our story and present it and show them in the way that we can now, that yeah, for me to be here right now to have this conversation, that started 3 weeks ago when I route checked the route, maybe even went to the trailhead, see if I can get a trailer in there. It's a new
Mhm.
trail, never been there. Putting shoes on my mule, getting food, getting all my gear, making sure the tack is ready. And then that morning, starting before the sun is up to catch and saddle, and then drive to the trailhead. And now we're here having this conversation.
Yeah,
That's a
just
lot of freaking work.
yeah, just the shoeing. Let's measure calorie per calorie burn. right? On the shoeing, because I
Yeah.
probably burned as many calories putting shoes on all these critters as he did hiking in, But now you're right, because it's for me, packing in that experience of having the animals, I like the routine of having those pack animals and those riding animals with me, the all right, get up in the morning and make sure they're grazed and make sure they're watered and saddle up and take care of I mean, and then the evening routine, all right, make sure again, water and graze and all that stuff. I love
Yeah.
that. I love how they're part of it. And man, some of the best moments ever is sitting watching mules graze. Like
Hmm.
I love it.
Hmm.
I did a trip this summer into the Wind Rivers,
Hmm.
and we had a cool camp where we kind of made our camp up on top of this little outcropping of rocks. So we're above a meadow and a lake. So we could look down on the meadow going to the lake right
Hmm.
below us. So it was just perfect. And we had our little fire right there on the edge of the rocks, the cliff,
Hmm.
and we could look out there, see the lake, see the mules grazing, and it was facing to the west. So, I mean, in the evening, that sun going
Oh
down
man.
over that
Yeah.
lake,
Yeah.
and you just see the shapes of the pine trees sticking up in the sun, in the as that sun's going down, and oh man, that was worth the whole trip right there. Just
Yeah.
seeing those mules graze as that sun's going down, that's good.
You get to have it, you get to interact with the landscape differently than you you would if you were by yourself.
Yeah.
For me, there is value in being out there solo and alone, and but to have a that true connection with that landscape, that's what those meals and my horses provide for me is that avenue, that vehicle, that connection. Because you're surveying the land, you're reading the land in a completely different way. Not only are you moving through the landscape at a steady 3 miles an hour, and something
Mhm.
else's feet are doing it for you, and so you can survey it differently. But yeah, you're gonna uh, approach land very, very differently on horseback than you are if you're on foot. But both of which are very fine and noble explorations. But I think the mule is a better way to see it
Well,
for sure.
I want to know about your trip on the PCT from Mexico to Canada. I got to hear about this, man. Tell
Yeah.
tell me about that.
Well, i- my my dad passed away 2014, February 3rd, 2014. Um, and it was a long year, long 18 18-year battle with ataxia. I mean, it was a losing battle. He was going to die no matter what. And when he died, I just had this urge to disappear, just go walk about. I just wanted to go so bad. I had my horse Trey, and anyways, I got to talking to some friends, and I got kind of thinking about it. And if you're going to do something, do it with a purpose. Just kind of kept popping in my head. It was something my dad always told me. And so, uh, if I was going to disappear, might as well have some sort of thing that somebody was going to want to talk to me about, and that was the Mustangs. So I got three untouched Mustangs from the BLM facility in Susanville, and I quit my job as a winemaker. I was a winemaker for about 10 years, making a very healthy living. Anybody walking away from that kind of might be silly making. Um, but it was something I knew I had to do. Uh, so I quit my job and I became an apprentice for as a farrier with gentleman Keith Swain here in Arlington. And I apprenticed with him for a year while I was training the Mustang. I'd never trained anything before. Uh, I had my horse Trey and just kind of like dabbled around, I guess, with some green animals and just being told what to do. But never had taken something from a complete untouched animal like that. Um, Before I got them, I just was trying to study as much on the animal husbandry and how the Mustang mind works and the mule mind. And, and so, anyways, I really that's when I started to develop my communication and actually learning their language and how do I speak to them. Uh, it wasn't until much later uh, when that really set in, but that was the beginnings of that, and being able to let them know, yes, I can hear what you're saying, and we can now go do this thing. So, anyways, I took these three Mustangs and trained them. And started the trail April 20th of 2017. All in all, it was 2 years of planning and preparing for the trail. And I was just again shilling, making money wherever I could, and then going off and packing in the summer. And then as soon as I hit the trail, whatever we didn't know, we were going to learn on the trail as far as the horses went. And from then, it was just my one riding horse, my one pack horse. I had initially adopted three, and the third one just quite wasn't ready. And that's my biggest regret out of the whole thing is I didn't just take him
Mhm.
and
So talk
figured,
about talk
yeah,
about selecting those horses. So did you go to one of these BLM holding facilities for all these Mustangs and pluck them out of there, or how'd that come about?
yeah, great question. It was not an online auction. It was going to the facility.
Mhm.
Absolutely. For something like this, I needed to know the herd dynamics before I got into it. I needed to set myself up for the most success and make sure that I had some form of healthy herd dynamic already in place. And so there in Susanville, California, is the Litchfield Holding Facility. A friend of mine lived there just down the road. So basically, I went for several weeks and I just would go to the holding facility. And this was something I talked to them about and said, I just want to be able to observe. And they said, absolutely. Yeah, drive out in that field and you can sit on your truck. That's the pen that you want because it's got all the 4 to 5 year olds. And that was the shock. I had never seen a holding facility before, and really got me wanting to do something about the Mustangs and getting them out of there. Because they're just giant dirt lots, and they're all just kind of standing there. But I would spend just hours sitting on my truck and watching, jotting down their tag numbers, and looking for traits, looking for behavior, looking for a good sound mind. Um, and I had a list. We had about 10 that looked like they'd fit the build for their mind, their feet, their physical build, um, and not had nothing to do with their looks. That was secondary.
Mhm.
And we just whittled that through. So we ran everything through and broke them up into smaller pens and just kept breaking it down and down and down and down. By the time we got to the end, the top three on my list were the top three that we ended up taking.
Sweet.
And I think that's a big injustice that people tend to do and get lost in that romance of the Mustang is this wild animal and the spirit of the West. They get it and they don't realize this is not a horse. This is a totally different deal. They didn't give it the time, and so the only thing that ends up suffering is the Mustang in the end. But anyways, yeah, that's what I did, and took him
So
back
how
to
much
the
time?
place, and yeah, how much time for training?
Yeah, yeah. Before you, so between the when you adopted the Mustangs and when you left on your trip, how much time elapsed there?
I think that I get those. 8 months.
That's still
Yeah.
pretty that's still pretty quick, like, I'm thinking about the meals I work and, like, when I'm picking, "Who am I gonna take on this trip?" "Which one do I want?" I mean,
Yeah.
8 months is pretty quick. Did you just work them down there, in Susanville? I only know one person in Susanville. I know Bryce Hathaway in Susanville, meal
That was
guy.
exactly his place.
Oh, he was at Bryce's place?
Yep.
Well, that's awesome. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I know Bryce. I've
With
known
white
him.
trash.
White trash. White trash died this year. Uh,
Holy shit.
yeah, yeah,
I
that's
haven't
sad.
I haven't I haven't talked to Bryce in a minute.
Oh, Bryce. Yeah, we met at Mule Days down there to Bishop. We both go down there. He goes down there every year. He's like Mule Days royalty. But
Yeah.
uh, yeah, that's where. So that's cool. So you hung out at Bryce's place working these Mustangs.
Yeah. 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 So he had a camper trailer that he let me stay in, and uh, I just helped take care and feed in the mornings when I was there and trade for that. And he had just bought that property too, and that's right. We were building fences. He almost killed me with his tractor, with his bucket, dude. I was standing and just donk with the bucket, just hit me right in the face.
Oh,
Um,
jeez.
yeah, it was really scary actually. But yeah, so I helped him put up new fencing on the property and build an arena for him. And in trades, I got to uh, train my animals there, or get them started.
Mhm.
And then once I had them gentled and they all had their first rides on, and then I jumped for the summer, went off into the mountains, and I didn't really touch them for 3 months. They just kind of hung out. Uh, and then after the summer packing, came back and we moved them down to Bishop. S- Spent the remainder months preparing for the trip and finishing off their training at down there. And I chose Bishop because of packing. It is kind of like the mecca of packing.
Oh, yeah.
There's
So was you working for
and
some pack stations there at the same time? Or
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I was working for Rock Creek,
okay.
and then packing a lot up out of Virginia Lakes. I worked for the Forest Service down there for a year before I came back up here. But yeah, at the time I was packing down there just as a guide, and um, then that winter, it was just all I did was just train them and get them ready. So all in all, it was about, yeah, 8 months worth of training. So I think it was about 2 months to get them gentled, and then 6 months of actually focused in on the arena work and just building their endurance and their muscle. And yeah, getting them ready for the complete unknown. you
Yeah,
know,
that's
where
mm.
I had set up uh, in the arena just campsites and all these weird shit that we might see along the trail, so that try to eliminate as many holes in the system as possible.
So
Yeah,
what was your process of getting them gentled? I mean, because you probably wanted to get these things really, I mean, really quiet, seeing how you're gonna go do this trip by yourself, and this is
yeah.
so what was some of your processes of getting them quieted down and gentled from that initial adoption?
Uh, the initial was trust,
Mhm.
was establishing that trust, that line of communication, and I really didn't have a full understanding of this line of thinking until much later. To Nate and Tara Metcalf. I mean, for me, they are the number one uh, it- reason and vehicle to my understanding of a mule. As far as being able to communicate with them, and registering it, getting them to register that, oh, this guy can hear me. Like, I just spoke horse to him, to this human, and he spoke horse back to me. establishing that and then going on to quieting and being gentle, dude, you're gonna have so much more success. Just don't come in with a tarp and start beating on them, and then is how do you get this stupid human just to get them to stop doing what they're doing? Oh, I'll just park it and stand here. Well, yeah, that's fine. Like that's one thing. That's one animal. But where is that animal's brain? He ain't with you. He's checked out. Like he's in survival mode and he's just parked it because the stupid human won't leave him alone. But if I can come in and in that process with that tarp, establish that communications, there you are. I see you're uncomfortable. Well, I'm just going to hang out here. And then when you relax, then I'll step away. That's you're going to be your release. It's not parking it. It's the actual mental switch in their brain of the release, and then I'm going to step away, and I'll come back into it again, and hopefully I can get a little bit further. Um, but by using that method versus giving the release at the stopping of the movement, that's how I believe you're really truly going to get a gentle animal, and one that is going to be a willing partner in this whole exchange. Because as Buck Brenneman in his movie Buck, one of my favorite lines in there is this, he's talking about saddling the horse for the first time. And, you've got this trust and you've established this, and it's okay with the bridle and moving around and your smells, and it's okay. Now I'm going to get on you, but before I get on you, I want to strap the hides of dead animals on you. You know, and this is a good idea, and I'm going to smell like a cheeseburger while I'm doing it the whole time. It's like, dude, how
Yeah.
do you expect them to understand what we're doing if we're not going to take the time to teach them what we're doing and talk to them and communicate with them? So yeah, that was my approach to the whole thing, was that trust and respect and communication. The going from an untouched to touched animal. There, my method was a square pen and a 10-foot pole, and that way I could reach out and just safely from the middle just touch them and have that horse go, "What the? How did you just Gumby arm me? But I'm alive," and I can get that communication going, and then start to close in that distance so I can now physically be all over them. And I've done that through that communication. And then now I need to start throwing things at them, weird stuff that we're going to see out in the world that is going to seem unnatural to them. And just let them know that it's okay.
Mm.
I'm not going to put you into any kind of harm. And that thing, even though it's in the wind, it's not going to eat you. I promise you. So yeah, and then that's how I over the years I just have been slowly refining those skills and trying to learn as much as I can through the mule or through the Mustang. Everything you need to know is they're gonna tell you.
Oh yeah.
We
Well,
just have to shut up and listen.
yeah. The sooner you can read those expressions and really understand how they feel, it makes a difference. Um,
Yeah.
one of the one of the coolest horsemen I've ever been around with being able to read a horse and read a cow.
Hmm.
The guy can read cows. He can read cows better than he can read horses. Is
Hmm.
Martin Black, and he's taught me so much. I've learned a lot from that guy. But that guy can just the horse is just an open book to him. He
Hmm.
just can read it. You just can see it, and he's helped me so much. Just noticing all the little things. Um, have you ever read Evidence Based Horsemanship by Martin Black and Steve Peters?
No. Mm.
Yeah, that's a good one. It's a good one. So Martin, he brings the horsemanship part of it and being able to read, the physical stuff. And uh,
Hmm.
Dr. Steve Peters, he brings the brain science. He's a retired neuroscientist, and so he brings all the brain science to it. And so he in the book they talk about, okay, well, when the horse is doing this, this is what's happening in the brain, and when it's
Mm.
doing this, this is what's happening in the brain. Anyways, between those two guys, man, I've learned so much on how to read them, and it's just like anything else. The better you can read them, I mean, once communication is established, whatever that means in whatever situation, but once communication is established, it's not hard anymore. It's only when the
Yeah.
communication is different, when I'm trying to understand the Spanish and they're trying to understand the English, or whatever.
Hmm.
That's we're not speaking the same language. That's when it's really hard.
Yeah, that's especially that toil, the understanding the toils of expectations. If you show up and you're just expecting to be able to get this animal to do whatever you want it to do, just kind of like brute force, you're not going to get where you need to go. But that's because you've shown up with an idea already. But if you show up with the idea that actually I know nothing at all, and I'm just here to absorb and listen, that's when I believe the magic begins, is when we show up completely quiet, and just shut up. Like my biggest meal mentor, Lee Rozier, is the quietest human I've ever met. A lot of people have described me as the quietest loud person, because my laugh, it's just like ridiculously loud, I'm told. But there was this time with we were loading a trailer. Someone else had shown up from another forest to help, and the mule paused. That the mule, I can't remember what it was, but something caught the mule's eye, and he just wanted to kind of register for a few minutes. And Lee's like, "That's fine. I, I can." He could tell the mule was still gonna come in the trailer, and so he just waited, and the mule stepped in. Okay, cool. I'm satisfied, and real quietly walked in and tied up. Right. So then next mule comes up, same thing. It caught its eye. So there's something out there, right? This person's like, "Come on, mule, up, mule, get up, mule." He just real quietly looked at him and says, "This is a quiet operation." And he went back to what he was doing. I was like, dude, that that's exactly it. This is a quiet
Yeah.
operation. Quiet your hands, gentle mind, gentle hands, gentle mind.
Yep.
And I think that's really important. A lot of people miss that.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes a difference. Ray Hunt, he had a saying in all his clinics. He'd say the horse knows if you know, and the horse knows if you don't know.
Mm,
And I used to think that kind of meant like, well, they know if you know how to turn or stop, or whatever, or like handle them.
mm,
But now, to me, it's much more that, well, they know if you're paying attention. They know where your awareness is. They know what
mhm,
your intentions are.
mhm,
Um, Man, and I used to tell my students, I used to walk in the clinic and say, okay, guys, I'm not going to say that the mule can read your mind, but I'm not going to say they can't.
mhm.
Now I quit saying that. I'm like, no, the mule can read your mind, you guys. They know what you're thinking. They know what your thoughts are. And the book that really changed that for me was Kinship with All Life. Have you ever read Kinship with All Life?
Mhm, mhm,
You can read it or get it on, you can listen to it or whatever. It's just a little book, but uh it's all about basically how this person interprets communicating with animals.
mm,
And really, long story short, what it comes down to is thought, like
mhm,
this universal language of thought, you
mm,
know, being able to see what something else is seeing,
mhm,
or see it, or rather see it how they see it,
mhm,
and anyways, I think the horses and the mules, man, they can feel your intention. So, when you're thinking about, like getting in that trailer, um, visualize it, think about it, and it's not just thinking about how they're gonna do it. Like, it's not just picturing them, like taking a step in. It's also considering how you want them to feel while they do it. And
mhm,
that's
mhm.
and that's important to me too. And I guess, and I don't mean to sound arrogant, if maybe some listeners might take it that way, but I'm not really worried about getting anything done these days, because I'm confident that I can. So, like, okay, we're gonna get the meal in the trailer. Okay,
Yeah.
like, that's not a question. I'm gonna get the cows loaded. I'm gonna cross the river. I'm gonna cross the bridge. I'm gonna,
Hmm.
like I can turn, stop, like so. Not, like I said, not to sound arrogant, but I can do those things. My focus now is how they feel while they're doing it. That's what I
Hmm.
really care about these days. So I know I can do the thing, but I want them to feel good. I want them to feel comfortable doing it. I want them to feel confident doing it. And so sounds like you're working right up that alley, man, with preparing these Mustangs and getting ready to go on
Yeah.
this trip.
Yeah. Yeah. It's there's a connection there for me between my relationship with the horse and the mule and my communication and how I live my daily life. Is
Yeah.
that intentional mindset like you were just talking about. If I know I'm going to get, I can get this animal into the trailer. It's not I can't, it's how can I? And there's a different mindset in that. If you show up
Yeah.
saying I can't or I don't think I can, then you're not going to do it.
Yeah.
Period. You've already made that choice. But if you are able to show up that I can do this and be totally open to all the possibilities between there from where you are to the finish, then anything is possible. You can get in that trailer. And then the animal husbandry aspect comes into how are they feeling while we're doing
Yeah.
that. That's that compassion.
Mhm.
And we can implement that in our daily life. It's how we interact with other humans, and then how we are in the world and what we're going to get from the world.
You
So
made a post that I wrote. I wrote it down, man. It was so good, and I don't remember when you posted this, but um, something like the the two rules of being a packer. Number one, be flexible. Number two, never use the word can't.
yeah,
And
yeah,
you just summed it up right there. Yeah, just be flexible and you can do it. Okay, you can do
yeah, yeah. I don't want to. If there's anything that's going to aggravate me more
it. Yeah.
than it's I can't do this. It's like bullshit. You can't.
Well,
Yeah, you can.
yeah, and people need to learn, hey, there's a difference between I can't and I don't want to.
Right.
Okay, if you don't want to, all right, that's fine, but don't say you can't.
Yeah.
It's like when you invite some people over. So I just tomorrow down here is supposed to be a really nice day, which is great for this time of year. It's supposed to be like 50. So
Oh
50
heck yeah.
in December is like this is record, right? This is amazing. So
Hmm.
we're gonna rope the dummy, and I invited some people over, and hey, let's come ride, and we're gonna rope. And a couple of them said I can't. I'm like, okay, you can't or you don't want to. Just tell me the
You.
truth.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh
Because
sure.
I know you can. You just chose something else.
Right. Right.
Yeah, that's a good mindset though, for packing, for horsemanship, for building saddles. I mean, you mentioned the Buck documentary, and it's been a long time since I watched it, but I do remember his foster mother, like Shirley, I think was her name. I can't remember,
Mhm.
but she
Yeah.
said, she quoted, she said, "Blessed are the flexible, for they shall not
Yeah.
get bent out of shape."
Yes.
Like,
Totally.
hey, live by that. That's a Packer and a Cowboys motto right there. You got to be flexible, and I'm sure you.
Yeah.
So getting back to your PCT, this trip here,
Hmm.
I bet there's a lot of times you had to be flexible. What kind of well, let's go dive into the trip now a little bit. So are you starting in Arizona or California?
California, Campo, California. Um,
Okay.
you just got a giant steel wall behind you, and there's a monument. Uh, the start is like the weirdest thing. It's the weirdest place, and you're just kind of driving through this neighborhood, and all of a sudden, pink, you show up, and here's this monument. And like, really? This is the beginning of a 3,000-mile trail going north? Like, this is pretty surreal. It's unreal. Um, and you just, yeah, head north after that. But the biggest thing on the trail in that year in particular was fire and ice.
Mm.
2017 saw the record snow year in the Sierra. Mm, So by the time I got to Kennedy Meadows, it was completely laden with snow. And so I had to go, which is pretty normal. I mean, you're not going to get from Mexico to Canada and stay on the PCT the entire time and do that in one season. Not
Hmm.
happening because you got that giant section of the Sierra, which has 13,000-foot passes. And I don't know, have you ever seen a 13,000-foot pass without snow in May? I sure haven't. And that is something I never want to see.
Yeah, that'd be
uh,
bad news if it was, huh?
yeah. So I spent half of my time planning the trip and route planning only the PCT. And then I had to say, okay, Rand McNally, you're my friend. Like, what is on to my right and what is to my left of this trail at
Mm.
all these different stages so that I can get around those things. And that's where that flexibility really, really came into play. Uh, Pretty much all my camps that I had chosen, I stayed at, unless it was on fire or under snow. And then once I was no longer on the trail and I was going up the Owens Valley, headed up towards Bridgeport, and then got into Tahoe and into Truckee, that was every day. I had no idea where I was going to go. I had my horse and pack horse, and my mom, she was driving my what I call the chuck wagon, the trailer, which was our mobile feed store. That when I was on the trail, I would meet up with it once a week and resupply and then get back on the trail. And then she would go off and do something. And we'd meet up and then I'd resupply, put new shoes on and cruise off. Um, when we were going up the Owens Valley towards Truckee, we were together meeting up every day. It was sitting down that night and looking at the map and say, okay, I'm going to try to get to this point. I don't know if we're going to get there or not, but we're going to do our best. Uh, and that's where you meet some of the most magical people and really have those experiences and really get to experience what I call the human experience. Being in the wilderness and being obsessed with every inch of the trail is one thing, but just being open to whatever possibility might be in front of you with the general direction of north is another thing. That was the trip that I wanted. I didn't care about every square mile of that trail. I just wanted to go from Mexico to Canada and leave hoof prints the entire way behind, and whichever way I was going to go. And yeah, I did get some flack. People like, well, that's not a purist. You didn't do the PCTs. No, I rode from Mexico to Canada. That's what I did. And there's only been 10 other people that have done it continuously since before me. So I'd
Mhm.
say that's a pretty cool deal. Um, yeah, there was times when you'd come around the corner and the whole trail is just crisscrossed with tape and says, nope, you can't go because it's on fire. And so you're spilling off this way. I was in Washington, got to Snoqualmie Pass, and between Snoqualmie and Stevens, the fire was just raging. I mean, just golf ball size bits of ash falling on us. And I was on one side of the valley looking across, and the whole ridge line is just on fire. Could barely breathe. The smoke was too thick, and I was like, I got to get out of here now. And look at the trail. Well, there's a feeder trail right here. Let's spill off that thing. You get down into it to the point of no return, and then you see that sign that says not suitable for stock. I'm like,
You say challenge accepted.
yeah, and you get down that thing and like, well, that wasn't so bad, and then you realize, oh, it's not suitable for stock because there's no ford, and the only bridge is a log footbridge now that I've got to take the string over, and it's just
So
all
how'd you
right,
do that?
dudes.
Did you ride them across? You get off and lead them across
I
that?
got
What you do?
yeah, got off and led him across. and gave him the time and went back to that mindset of loading in the trailer. This is a quiet operation and gonna be quiet. And in my mind, this is what we're doing. I'm going to cross this bridge. We are crossing this bridge. We are actively crossing this bridge. There is no other outcome. That's the only one I want to think about. And so I just casually walked across and they said, well, shit, dad did it too. Let's casually walk across too. And just pretended as if it was an everyday thing. We've done it a million times before. And it went beautifully. Like
Nice.
you could think about all the possibilities of what could go wrong. Sure. But that's probably going to be your end result.
Yeah.
Too. It's that what is it? Every kid learning how to ride a bike, keep any kind of pole away from them because they're gonna see that pole and ride straight into it. It's just because it's the only thing you're focused on. But if you're
Hey, I think
focused on crossing it,
that's the demise of so many people in horsemanship and mulemanship is right there is thinking about all the things that can go wrong.
yeah,
And I teach my students and I try to, we do these mental exercises. They'll be working on something and pretty quickly they're complaining about their mule doing something that they don't want them to do. I say, hold on, hold on, hold on. What do you want? Focus
hmm
only on what you want this animal to do instead of
yeah,
don't do that. Don't do that. Nope, nope,
yeah,
nope, no, no, no. That's taking up too much space in your mind. That's too consuming. I could sit here and think about all the things I don't want to have happen today. No, no way. I don't even have the brain capacity for that. I
yeah,
got to focus on what I want to do. So
yeah,
that's a good lesson right there, and having the confidence that they can do it. Like you can do this, we can do this, and
hmm
knowing it. But I think, by the time you get up there to Washington, this is in Washington, right? Yeah.
yeah,
Um, by the time you're there, you've had so many experiences of building confidence, um, of you in your horses, but also your horses in you.
yeah,
And that's the other thing I tell my students, um, before you put yourself into predicaments, make sure you have the backing for it, that
hmm
you've done the foundational work to prove that. So, yeah, you did that bridge. Does that mean that somebody else should go do that bridge today? You
yeah,
know, um, maybe not. If they don't have it, I'm thinking right now, I know there's some meals right here in my pen that it would be just like you're talking about, that they would just be like, yep, you got it. And then I got some youngsters and some new ones that they'd be like, dude, you're crazy, man. Yeah, I
you
ain't
know
doing
what?
it. So
And that's I gotta put a log on the fire before it goes out here real quick.
go ahead, bud.
Living in the 1860s here, stoking the old fire. Yes. Oh shoot. So now the fire lost my train of thought.
No, we were just talking. I was just saying I got some mules that could do it and that I know they could do it. And I got some mules that are new that I haven't built that foundation. So if I got to that bridge with those newer mules, um, likely I wouldn't be successful just because I haven't put in the time, I haven't put in the work. So
Yeah.
I could think all the positive thoughts I want, but it ain't gonna happen because I haven't done the work as well. So I think there's a good mixture there, like what you're talking about. You had that positive mindset, like we're gonna do this. It's just like any other bridge we've crossed a million times. But you also had the backing to be able to do that. You did the work.
hmm
You
hmm
got by that time, how many months have you been riding up that trail by the time you get to Washington?
We were 5 months in.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, four
So,
4 months in, 5 months in somewhere. Yeah.
and that's an amazing experience. You're living with these horses every day. It's just you and these horses. Your whole life is consumed with these horses. That's
Yeah.
something that very few people will ever get to experience, Well,
Yeah.
even me, Trent, like I have never spent 4 months straight packing and with my animals. I'm with my animals, I guess, every single day, but not like that. It's not the same.
Yeah.
It's not the
Yeah.
same. You're 24/7 with them. Me, you know, the longest I think I've ever spent just with them 24/7 is probably like, I don't know, 10 days. you
Hmm.
know, other than that, it's like, well, yeah, we ride because I ride almost every day, pretty much every day, but Sundays I ride. But
Hmm.
it's put the ride on them, go for a ride, do whatever, and then I'm in here doing a podcast.
Yeah.
So, so, but so that experience that you had, you earned that opportunity, and I guess that's a good lesson for everybody to pay attention
I
to.
think I think that was like if there was one thing that what was the hardest thing about that trail, and it really is that just 6 months every single day. I'm getting up before the sun's up, and I'm catching, and I'm saddling, and building my loads, breaking my camp, building my loads, gonna ride 20 miles, and then get to camp, take everything apart, turn them out, um, and let them graze all night long, and then maybe get 3 hours of sleep. Do that for 6 months, every single day. Um,
Yeah.
and it's that mindset of, yeah, is it hard? Absolutely. Do I struggle? 100%. I just don't quit. And
Yeah.
there's the difference is quitting. That's the easy thing to do. The hard thing is to keep going, which we all know. But you have to be able to just to keep moving forward. But there is a really beautiful moment that happens when you are living like that. And then it's that connection that you end up getting with those animals. And then the big thing people need to, if they're thinking about taking something like this on, is you spend a lot of time preparing and actually on the trip and physically preparing. Prepare yourself for the end of the trip. Prepare yourself to take a 10-meter high dive off into the pool of depression and swim into it for a while, because you have just gone from this most beautiful rhythm that is life, and Mother Nature is brutally honest and harsh, and that's what that life is like. And you're living in it, and you're effectively living as real as you possibly can and ever will in your entire life, and then it's over. You got to go back to the world, and you're like, holy shit, I can barely handle this.
Yeah.
People suck.
Yeah, I've never thought about that, Trent. Coming back
Yeah.
at because I mean, I've had little experiences where, I got to do this and it was so fun, so grand, and then you got to come back. I know how I feel just after a 6-day pack trip, having to come back to
Yeah.
life. And you're kind of like,
Yeah.
oh man. I can't imagine when you get in that rhythm of 6 months of
Yeah.
of that rhythm of having to come back and different types of struggles. It probably puts things in perspective though, of like how many things we worry about that are so
Hmm.
unnecessary. You're like, I just
Hmm.
lived 6 months and I didn't even think about that one
Any of that.
thing, and now I come back and I got to worry about paying my electrical
Yeah.
bill.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it goes back to, like, to go forward, we actually need to go backwards in
Mm,
time, you know. But
yeah,
man, we've all just got so accustomed to all that love little creatures, and
yeah,
I don't see that too many people doing that. But yeah, that's a lot of people don't really think about that. I didn't think about it. And when it hit me, it was hard for, yeah, a solid 2 months. I mean, I finished the trail, I had $20 to my name. I Every credit card I had was completely maxed out. Um, but I had donated $25,000 to the Taxi Foundation. So that to me was pretty freaking cool. I
oh
was broke
yeah,
as shit, didn't have a job. Um, but that yeah, that was okay. Just okay, what am I gonna do now? I don't know. Let's figure that out. Here's our new
mhm,
problem in front of us. And then move on to the next one, and then you move on to the next one. And eventually you'll get to where, I am now, and relatively successful small business and
yeah,
creating saddles that are going off and living in the mountains. I think
heck
that's
yeah.
pretty cool.
Yeah, you're sending saddles everywhere nowadays. I mean, it's pretty cool to see your journey there.
Yeah. Yeah, that has been the big thing for me. It's just like, well, you know, I I didn't even expect that. I built my first saddle out of necessity.
Mhm.
And then while I was on the trail, um, people were, intrigued by it and saw the saddle. And when I got off the trail that winter, um, someone local here in Washington reached out and said, "Hey, would you build me a saddle? Never done that before. Never built a saddle for somebody else. Sure, but I built that one, uh, and then took that money and bought some more tools. And then that person sold me my second saddle, so I built them that and took that money and bought some more tools. I'm still working full time as a ski patroller, and then packing in the summers and building my saddles in my spare bedroom. Um, and it just kind of snowballed from there because I created this thing's niche, I guess, uh, that people wanted. But it wasn't because it was like, I think this is what people want. It was no, it was, I need that thing and I want to go create that. I had a guy ask me, he says, "Hey, what should I think about, as far as becoming a new and upcoming saddle maker?" And I said, "My biggest advice to you is build and make the things you use and you want to make, not what you think other people need. You know, Otherwise you're not going to be putting your best intention into it because you're not going to want to do it." And anyways, it's just with that mindset,
Yeah.
started selling throughout the states, and then all of a sudden internationally now. And I've got
Yeah.
saddles and around the world. And that is, as a saddle maker and as an artist and as a packer, man, that's cool to just think about that. One of my saddles is in another country leading a string of mules.
Yeah, that's cool, huh?
Like that,
That's
man, that is,
heck
gives me chills.
yeah. Yeah. Well, it's kind of like you get to live through all those adventures, you know? It's like you're there. It's like a part
Yeah.
of you is there. I was just thinking when you were saying that, the advice you give to that up and coming saddle maker about, hey, build the stuff that you would like. It's like right now I'm working on a book. I'm about done with my book. But I've got a lot of, I've showed it to people and people have given me little insights and things. And I've had multiple people tell me, "Are you sure that your audience would want to hear this?" And I'm like, "Well, it's what I wanted to write."
Yeah.
Yeah, I wrote, I'm writing this book, how saying the things and portraying the things that I want to say and portray, the things that I want to do. And
Yeah.
it might sound selfish, I guess on the surface it might sound selfish, but that's the real me. That's the real thing that I'm trying to put out. I'm not writing that book hoping, or thinking that, well, I'm going to write this because I think that's what they want to hear. I'm
Hmm.
writing it because it's what I want to say.
Yeah.
And it's actually freeing, I think, to be able to do that, you know.
Absolutely.
It's the same thing with mules, with mulemanship. When people are training, they'll take, they'll take my techniques and methods and principles, or they'll take some other trainers and they're doing that, and that's all fine. Everybody has something good to offer. But I tell people, is this what you want? Like,
Hmm.
you don't have to do the stuff that I'm showing you just because Ty Evans said so. No.
Hmm.
Do you want to be able to do this? Do you want to be able to, I'm teaching people these techniques to be able to go out like we're like what me and you do. Go pack, go
Hmm.
ride, go hunt, go play in the rough country, go chase cows, go rope. All my mules are pretty much using mules, right?
Hmm.
Is that what you want? If you're wanting to just go to the show pen, maybe the things that I'm showing you probably aren't going to fit. Like you know
Hmm.
what I mean? Or what they're teaching in the show pen, it might not fit what I'm trying to get done out here on the mountain.
Hmm.
So I ask my students, is this what you want? And we can go we could go down a million rabbit holes with that, man. But I'm glad you said that, and that's a great piece of advice you give that up and coming saddle maker. Because if you when you start doing everything for everybody else, like especially with probably your career of building saddles and tack, I think it's tolling on your mind, like your mental, your creative capacity. Do you think like, if you're just taking custom orders and just trying to, you know, you're building things that you're not really into, I think that's kind of hard.
Yeah, in my experience, I can only speak for myself.
Right.
When I've been in those situations, they're good scenarios to put yourself into because you're putting yourself in an uncomfortable situation
Right.
and uh, having to create something that you've never created and you probably never thought you would. And there's lessons in that. Um, but that's when it really starts to feel like a job to me because it's somebody wanted this thing, so now making it for them. Versus just letting my curiosity create the things. Um, and that's part of my ADHD is that I could be stitching up a saddle horn and all of a sudden something comes in my head and shit, I gotta stop that. I'm gonna go create this thing real quick.
Yeah.
I have no
Nice.
idea what it's gonna turn out. Uh, but then it's done and like, well, that's pretty cool.
Hmm.
I like that. And I'll make another one and I'll make another one. And then next
Yeah.
thing people are like, oh, I want that. And you're really going to start to put your passion, your heart, your craft, your skills, and they're going to be translated into that product and then that thing. And be honest with yourself. It's okay to not be good at it.
Hmm.
It's okay to not do this for the rest of your life. It's okay to try it and go, no, that just doesn't quite work for me. What's not okay is to say, well, fuck it, and then do nothing. If that didn't work, we'll just keep exploring. Just explore until you find that thing that resonates with you. And now follow that path. And from if you can get on that path, and there's just doors that are gonna just keep opening for you. But you keep fighting that thing and just, well, society or my culture or you know, my mentor says I need to do this, or this is what a saddle looks like. Bullshit. All that's made up. That's a human construct. We've had saddles for thousands of years and in different cultures. The only thing that's common between them is that they are the thing that attaches the rider to the horse.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
The rest of it is up to interpretation.
Hmm.
So when a guy comes up to me and says, well, that's not how you build a saddle. I said, no, that's not how you build a saddle. This
Hmm.
is how I build mine. You don't like it? Okay. I'm all right with that. But I'm not okay with building it just because you want,
Yeah.
I get people, they ask me, well, can you build me a saddle on association style tree? No. Well, why not? You can do everything else just like you do on the other ones because I don't think that's what a saddle should be. Well, don't you want the money? Sure, money's great. I'd rather spend that time though, because that's the only currency that I actually can spend is time on doing the things I want to do.
Yeah. That reminds me of so I can relate to you with that saddle stuff because a lot of people like when they see me working on something, oh, you can't train a mule the same as you train a horse. And I say, well, no, you can't train your mules the same way you're training your horses.
Yeah,
But the way I'm doing it, my horses get along just fine, and so do my mules.
yeah,
So yeah, I love that when people will say, but it's just what they've heard.
hmm
It's just whatever they've read or heard or something, and somebody else said it. And but yeah, man, well, that's good stuff. Well, Trent, we've been chatting for quite a while, bud, and I know you got some
yeah,
saddles to build, and I got some mules to ride. So, but I appreciate you coming on the show, and you got a tremendous Instagram. Like I've said, you guys go follow the Wild in Us on Instagram. It's way cool. Way cool. Unless you are really tight on time, then maybe you shouldn't because you'll get distracted, I promise. You'll get sucked into that Instagram page, be like, oh wow, this is cool. And the next thing, dude, what is it about you cutting leather that everybody loves so much? Like whenever you're cutting leather, like it just makes us all of us like, oh wow, that's so cool.
There's an
What is
oddly
that?
satisfying. I don't know, man.
Or
It's
rivets.
yeah, it connects with something. I
Dude,
think it
dude, your rivets too, man. Your rivets, like just something about putting like yeah, you post a video of putting rivets on, and I was just like, oh, this is so cool. I mean, I've done that. I've put rivets in multiple, lots of times, not as many as you have,
yeah.
but lots of times. So it's like nothing special, but it's like all of a sudden I'm sitting there watching you put rivets in, and I really liked it.
I know I did. I did. I went and looked at the analytics on one. It's like people cumulatively in 4 days, no, or in 4 weeks have spent 4 days, a
Hmm.
total of 4 days watching a 8-second video.
Oh yeah, that's it's cool. So
That's
you
great.
keep up the good work. It's awesome. You got a great page. You also got a website, thewildinus.com. They can
Yeah.
go on there and they can. You often have gear for sale, ready to purchase on there,
Yep.
too, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's if you want my product, that's the best way is to go. I don't do consignments. You're not going to find it in a tack shop. It's direct sales. So yeah, please jump on my website. And if it's in inventory, then it's for sale. If it's not in inventory, then I haven't made it yet. And just uh, be patient until I get it back in inventory. Because I unfortunately just don't have time to take on custom orders anymore. And like I said, it's I want to be focusing on the things I want to make.
Yeah. Well, you do a good job. So one last thing, Trent, before I turn you loose, bud. So you've given a whole bunch of awesome advice already, but on all of my guest episodes, I have the guest offer a piece of advice for people going down this road of life, out there riding those horses, riding the mules, packing. What's one piece of advice that you'd give somebody?
Curiosity. That's my biggest thing. My biggest advice in life is just let curiosity be your guide.
Nice.
Follow that, and anything's possible.
Heck yeah, bud. That's a great piece of advice. Curiosity. Curiosity has consumed most of my time.
Hmm.
Well,
As it
what
should.
what happens if I do this with a meal? Oh, I better not do that again.
Yeah.
Or hey, that worked really good. I'm gonna do that lots more times. But heck yeah, that's a great piece of advice. Well, Trent, I appreciate you, my friend. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on, Ty.
And to all of our listeners out there, thanks for tuning in on this episode. Be sure to check out Trent on Instagram and on that website that we mentioned, and leave us a review if you feel of mind to. We'd sure appreciate it. And with that, my friends, God bless you, and we'll see you down the road.